Hey folks, just going to do a quick update on Crime and Punishment, the read-along which is currently happening through 2024. This is from chapter 6, where we're getting a description of Lizaveta Ivanovna, who's the sister of the old pawnbroker Alyona Ivanovna, the one who is about to be murdered. So, in the description of Lizaveta, there's a bit in the Russian where it says that she's a stierva. She's a bit of a mean word to use about someone. It's not a word I'd really come across before in my time as a Russian speaker, even living over there, so it must be quite an archaic word. So here's how it's translated. We're going to go through the 7 translations in the order of publication, and it's all on the spreadsheet if you want to check it out. So, first up, Constance Garnett. She's an awful old harpy. David Macduff. Only she's a horrible old cow. Pavirin Volokhonsky. Only she's a terrible harpy. Oliver Reedy. She's a right bitch, mind. Nicholas Pasternak Slater. But she's a terrible harpy. Michael R. Katz. But she's an awful bitch. Roger Cockrell, but she's a ghastly old bat. So they all capture the nuance, I suppose, of a 19th century slang term to be demeaning towards someone. I think I quite like ghastly old bat the best out of that lot. Harpy probably fits really well, as that in itself is an archaic word in English. Not something you hear very often, so I suppose what I'm saying is if you want a more traditional, old-fashioned kind of English to match the time of the original, maybe that's something to consider when you're looking for a translation. Ghastly old bat certainly sounds a lot more modern, as does bitch. Horrible old cow? That's maybe kind of in the middle. I don't think maybe in the 19th century you would have called someone a horrible old cow. Although, I don't know, because I haven't read enough 19th century English literature to be able to tell you that. So, the next thing I wanted to discuss was the height, as it's discussed, of Lizaveta. There's an old unit of measurement used to describe her height. We've already had versts, or vyorst, as it is in Russian, to describe distance when travelling by horse or coach. And some translators have kept that in the translation and translated it as versts, and then with an asterisk and a footnote, because obviously a modern reader of an English translation would have no idea what that was. Easy enough to look it up though. But when we discuss Lizaveta's height, this one here, Roger Cockrell says, although Lizaveta herself was at least 6 feet tall. Yeah, so in the Russian we are using an old unit of measurement called vershok, which apparently is 1/16 of an arshin. So I'll put a link to this page here I'm looking at now, which is a calculator of Russian length unit converter. And it has a description of the different units of measurements, including versts. So 1 mile is 7 versts, or viersts, or vyorst. Blah, blah, blah. 3 arshins, an arshin comprising 4 quarters, and a quarter comprising of 4 vershoks. And it's roughly 4.45 centimetres is a vershok. So let's look at the translations. Right, Constance Garnett says at least 6 feet high. David Macduff says at least 6 feet tall. Pavirin Volokhonsky, at least 6 feet tall. Oliver Reedy, a whole foot taller at the very least. Nicholas Pasternak Slater, at least 5'10". Michael R. Katz, at least 6 feet tall. Roger Cockrell, at least 6 feet tall. So 8 Veershocks, which is the description we're given, is about 35 centimetres, so give or take a foot, roughly speaking. So Oliver Reedy, for me, wins the prize here, where he says a whole foot taller at the very least. It must be a comparative. I don't know whether we're given the height of Alyona Ivanovna anywhere in the novel. It could be that we were and I wasn't paying attention, so I might have missed it, in which case you could add 1 foot or 35 centimetres to whatever height we were given for Alyona Ivanovna, and that's where you would get the 5'10" or the 6 feet. But otherwise, I'm not sure where the translators are getting those numbers from, because all we're given is 8 Veershocks, which is just over a foot. So that's a little interesting example of the kind of thing that translators have to deal with. Old units of measurement. Do you translate them? Do you convert them? Do you keep them as they are with a footnote? These are decisions, you know. Another little thing that I wanted to highlight was something that jumped out to me in the Roger Cockrell as idiomatic English that I really liked. So it's right at the beginning of chapter 6 where they're discussing Lizaveta as being a dealer, because at the end of chapter 5 we get Raskolnikov overhearing a discussion between Lizaveta and a couple of traders at the market, so that he knows at 7 p.m. the house is going to be empty and Alyona Ivanovna is going to be home alone. So he overhears that conversation, and the reason that she's going to be alone is because Lizaveta's got to come back at 7 p.m. to meet with, then we get the discussion, some people who have some stuff to sell, basically, and they're looking for a trader. And it says here that they were looking for a dealer, something that was right up Lizaveta Street. So it's really good idiomatic English, modern sounding, nice, easy to read for a new reader of Dostoevsky. Does it meet with the style of 19th century English? Well, no, it doesn't. But does that matter? That's a decision for you to make. So I've written down the translations from the other ones. Constance Garnett says they were looking for a dealer. This was Lizaveta's business. So, yeah, satisfactory. David Macduff, they were looking for a woman to do the selling for them elsewhere. This was the occupation Lizaveta had found for herself. So that's almost double the number of words as the original. A little bit wordy, perhaps. And woman, looking for a woman to do it. Does not say that in the original. So, you know, he's made a choice. Pavir and Vologonsky, they were looking for a middleman, and that was what Lizaveta did. Nice and short. Middleman, yeah. Oliver Reedy, so they were looking for a dealer. Dash, Lizaveta's line. Very short. Nicholas Pasternak Slater, they were looking for a dealer, and this was something Lizaveta did. Yeah, ticks the box. Michael R. Katz, they were looking for a trader, and Lizaveta engaged in that kind of commerce. Quite modern. And as I've already discussed, Roger Cockrell, it was right up Lizaveta's street. So that is what's jumped out to me in chapter 6. Other than the mentions of fate, fatalism. So to move away from specifically translation issues, there are several instances in this chapter where Raskolnikov is feeling like he's got no choice in this now. It's been alluded to in previous chapters as well. This one here really stood out to me, where it says that he felt as if someone had taken him by the hand and pulled him along blindly, irresistibly, with unnatural force and without any resistance. It was as though a piece of his clothing had become caught up in a wheel and he was being dragged along with it. Other translations mention machinery in that part, and the Russian does mention machinery does it use an adverb? I can't remember. But yeah, it's an interesting idea that he feels that fate is dragging him along and that he's got no choice other than to go through with this murder. There, and you got a Scotsman to say murder in a video. My wife loves when I say that, and she always copies me. It's quite funny. Taggart, this came up in a programme we were watching last night, which had some euthanasia in it. And was it Blue Lights? A great cop drama that's on at the moment. And it reminded me of Taggart, where someone said to him, "It's euthanasia, sir." And he said, "It's murder." So there you go. Taggart, for those that don't know, was a cop show set in Scotland, around Glasgow, in the 80s, or was it 90s, with is it Mark McManus who played the role. Great cop show. Anyway, I'm digressing. Crime and Punishment. It's a great read. Really enjoying this read along. I hope you are too. If you would like to join us, it's by no means too late. We're only just at chapter 7. In this book, it's page 74, so that gives you an idea of how easy it would be for you to catch up. You could catch up in a couple of reading sessions quite easily if you want to follow along. We do have a Storygraph read along, which I'll put a link to down below. We're using the Storygraph app as a publishing platform to have our discussions, and it seems to be working really well. So thank you to everyone who's participated over there. We're at over 80 readers now, which is fantastic. I'm absolutely blown away, and I'm really pleased that there are so many people out there that care about 19th century Russian literature enough to watch these videos and to read along with us. So if you would like to, we'd love to have you. Come and join us over at the Storygraph. 1 chapter a week. It's not a big ask. We're reading it right up until the end of the year, so it's a nice slow pace. So maybe I'll see you there. If not, you can keep watching these videos to be kept up to date with the story as it progresses, and with some translation things that crop up as I go through the Russian alongside 7 different translations. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye for now.